Hello, everyone. This is Akamiya, and I am back. I have no excuse for my sheer inactivity, so I just apologize for not um, doing anything for like two, one, two, couple months. Um, but I'm going to change my format a little bit. I'm not going to be on camera my entire response. Um, it just doesn't seem practical with. I mean, you saw how I did it last time. The script didn't help much. So I'm gonna try something else. Feedback in the comment section if you want. But I'm just gonna try something different. With that said, let's see what this guy has to say.
Okay, so we're going to cover those 1 through 7. The Bible is the best-selling book of all time. Many books have sold in the thousands, and there's been a few books that have sold in the millions, but there are no books that have ever come close to the Bible when it comes to sales. Bibles sell at a rate of about 150 million of them each year. There are currently about 4 billion, and that's billion with a B, about 4 billion Bibles in print right now in over 1,400 different languages.
So what? How does that lend anything to its credibility? Look, if Harry Potter books were selling that well instead, would you say any of those books are credible in the sense that they tell us that magic exists or whatever? Or, to use a religious example, if it were the Quran in that place instead of the Bible, would you become a Muslim? I highly doubt either case. It's an appeal to popularity fallacy you're using here.
The Bible stands alone. If you took 10 people from similar backgrounds, ages, languages, and asked each of them to write a book about one controversial subject, you would have 10 differing opinions. They would all have trouble agreeing with each other. The Bible is compiled of 66 books. It's written over a period of about 1,600 years, and it had over 40 different authors, writers, fishermen, politicians, generals, kings, shepherds, and historians were authors. The 40 writers were from 3 different continents. Most never met each other or even knew of the others. They spoke in 3 different languages. You've got Greek, Aramaic, and Hebrew. They wrote on hundreds of controversial topics. They wrote in dungeons, in temples, on beaches, on hillsides. They wrote in peacetime and also in wartime. Yet all 66 books of the Bible come together one with another in complete harmony with each other.
Complete harmony, huh? Uh, even one single contradiction will blow a claim like that out of the water. Even my best friend, who is a Christian, by the way, will agree with me that the Bible is not in complete harmony. Well, he might. I don't know. You'll have to ask him. Uh, he sometimes wanders my comment sections on this channel. You'll know him when you see him. The point is, falsifying that claim is not hard at all.
Now, number 2, the Bible claims to be written by God. Now, all other religions or religious texts were written by men who claim to be speaking for God. The Bible's different. The Bible claims to be written by God, speaking to men. You can find that in 2 Timothy chapter 3, verse 16. You're going to find the term, thus saith the Lord, over 3,000 times in the Bible. So the Bible is not claiming human authorship at all. Now, it is true that humans penned it, but God told them, straight from God's lips, down to the pen, what to put in.
By this logic, we have to accept that Sherlock Holmes was written by Dr. Watson, and not Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. Well, he was just the literary agent.
Now, number 3, historical evidence supports the Bible. Homer's Iliad is the second best documented piece of literature in antiquity. It has 643 ancient manuscripts to document it. The earliest manuscript was written about 1,000 years after, found about 1,000 years after its original source was written. There are no serious historians that question the authenticity of Homer's Iliad. Now, Homer's Iliad is the second most documented piece of ancient literature. All other pieces of ancient literature that you may have read about in high school or college or whatever have less historical evidence to support them than Homer's Iliad does.
I think I feel safe about granting this for the sake of the argument because it really isn't relevant, and I also don't care to correct him on this point anyway. I mean, I don't feel like going to the trouble of researching it at this point in time. I mean, I might do it later, but not right now. It's just, I don't think it's worth it.
Now, Homer's Iliad is the second best documented piece of ancient literature, but in the Bible, we have over 24,000 ancient copies of portions of the New Testament. One of those documents was written within 98 years of the death of Jesus. The New Testament has over 37 times more parchment, papyrus, and manuscript evidence to support it than Homer's Iliad does to support itself. The New Testament writings are 10 times closer to the original source than Homer's Iliad's was. Now, just as no serious historians question the authenticity of Homer's Iliad, the same is true for the Bible. There are no serious historians that question its authenticity. It's beyond question.
I think it's interesting how he just, I don't know, oh, forgets to cite his sources on this matter. So I'm left with no other choice but to say to ask him for a source or citation needed.
Biblical texts are closer to the original written text than any other ancient text, and the Bible has no contradictions. There are a lot of people that claim there are contradictions in the Bible, but there are none that have ever been found.
Okay, now this is a bald-faced lie, and I'm going to falsify this claim in one fell swoop. Get out your Bibles, everyone. Time to keep me honest. For the record, I will use the Revised Standard Edition, as that is the only version that is currently handy to me. The contradiction that I will use to bury this claim lies between statements in Matthew 27:5 and Acts 1:18. In context, the Matthew account portrays Judas as a remorseful individual for having sold Jesus out, so much so that he committed suicide as a consequence. In the Acts account, well, that statement is the context. He bought a friggin' field, for goodness sake. No throwing silver on the ground here, he decided he wanted to have it made. And then Yahweh apparently exploded his guts for it. I heard the argument that Judas hung himself, and then, after his body decayed for a while, his guts exploded. I almost hate to break it to a fundy, but if you find this argument compelling, your book disagrees with you. Even if I accept that his guts exploded after he hung himself for the sake of the argument, you still have to account for the mutually exclusive mindsets, whether or not Judas threw the silver on the ground, and where that field went, or even if that field was ever purchased. I'm not even sure which statement either the Bible or reality itself agrees with. As there is quite an absence of evidence for either statement, all I have is this book's word, and it can't even keep its story straight. The only thing I can conclude at this point is that neither account can be trusted.
Now, what about Tacitus and Josephus? Tacitus was a Roman historian, Josephus was a Jewish historian. They both support the historical accuracy of the Bible. Now, neither one of them had a reason to support it, because remember, the Romans are the ones that put Jesus on the cross, and the Jewish folks are the ones who incited people to want to put him on the cross. And Christianity was an enemy of the current religion of the day. The Sadducees and the Pharisees and the Jewish religion did not want it. The Romans certainly didn't want it. They saw it as a threat. But yet, a Roman historian and a Jewish historian both recorded the events of Jesus' death in the Bible. One of them even went on to say he was a man, if you could even call him a man, because what he did was way beyond the abilities of what a man can do.
There's no evidence supporting the assertion that Jesus actually did any of that stuff. All we have is your word, Erd, and actually, since you're getting it from the Bible, all we have is the Bible's word for it. That's not good enough. At least not for me.
Now, In addition to that, there were also 17 secular historians who had no interest in promoting Jesus who recorded the death of Jesus by crucifixion. There were also eyewitness accounts. Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John wrote parts of the New Testament. They wrote about indirect and also direct eyewitness accounts of the life of Jesus. When Jesus rose from the dead, he was seen by over 500 people in 13 different places over a 40-day period of time. The Bible gives detailed historical accounts that are drawn down to the smallest detail, like the rise and fall of empires like Greece and Rome. You'll find that in Daniel chapter 2, verses 39 and 40. The destruction of major cities like Tyre and Sidon. You'll find that in Isaiah chapter 23.
Please use sources that are not the Bible. Things like this have to be demonstrated empirically.
Now, number 4. Archaeological evidence also supports the Bible. Over 25,000 archaeological finds provide support regarding people, their titles, and their locations mentioned in the Bible. Not one of them has contradicted the Bible. Nelson Glueck, who's a renowned Jewish archaeologist, he wrote, "It may be stated categorically that no archaeological discovery has ever controverted a biblical reference."
Well, I don't know what archaeology claims and aims, but I do know that at several other fields of science and do contradict the biblical record. For example, Noah's flood was falsified. Like, I don't know how long ago. I really don't want to go into the detail. This would take a while for me to like memorize everything and then put it into the video. But I'll put a link in the description into Talk Origins article on it. What they have to say is pretty interesting. And also, I'm pretty sure this guy's as a young Earth creationist at this point. So, it would be very relevant to whatever he's claiming.
Well, what about scientific evidence? Scientific evidence also supports the Bible. 2,500 years ago, science said that there are only about 1,100 stars in the sky. But the Bible, at the same time, the prophet Jeremiah said in Jeremiah 33:22 that the host of heaven cannot be numbered. Science used to teach that the world sat on the back of a large animal. They believed that because a flat earth, in their minds, had to be resting on something. But Job chapter 26 verse 7 says of God that he stretched out the north over the empty place and hangs the earth upon nothing. Job's statement was written about 3,500 years ago. Science didn't catch up until recent history. 2,000 years ago, Hebrews chapter 11 verse 3 said, "Through faith we understand that the worlds were framed by the word of God, so that the things which are seen were not made of things which do appear." Science just recently caught up to that one when they discovered that atoms are invisible things that make up visible things.
Okay, I don't know if these claims are actually true, but let's assume that they are for the sake of argument, so that I can just point out that at least science updates its information when new evidence is presented and run through the coals of empirical. I can't be bothered to remember the lingo at this point, but I'm pretty sure you get my point. The scientific method, it has been shown to be very reliable throughout history, and when all these claims have been put to the test, whatever was falsified, I was put into the pseudoscience bucket. It and also the realm of falsified ideas, I guess. The problem with the Bible is that it does not update itself with new information. In fact, it pretty much stays the same. And that's why people like me have to deal with people like you.
Isaiah chapter 40 verse 22 was written about 2,800 years ago. And it says, "It is he that sitteth upon the circle of the earth." Now this is back when scientists believed that the earth was flat. Again, science didn't catch up until recent history. So,
Okay, I'm probably getting into a semantics game with this one, but the Earth is not a circle either. The Earth is a sphere. Well, it's not a sphere. It's almost a sphere. It's not smooth enough to be a proper sphere, uh, at least by my understanding of what a sphere is, but it's close enough for all practical purposes. It's a sphere. I'm just not gonna split hairs with this one. But the Earth is not a circle, but is what I'm saying. A sphere is not a circle, and a circle is not a sphere.
There's another one that my personal favorite, sonoluminescence. Look that up. Google that. Sonoluminescence, to sum it up, it's where you take sound waves and hit a body of water with sound waves and light is produced. We're going to find in Genesis, the very first book of the Bible, the very first 3 verses in that book describes the process of sonoluminescence, where God hovered over the face of the waters. Then God spoke into the waters and said, "Let there be light," and there was light.
Okay, I remember that thing in the Bible in Genesis. I remember that. It's not quite saying what you're saying, what you think it is, but that's not sonoluminescence, you idiot. That's literally speaking a light source into existence.
Now we're going to cover part 6 and 7 in the next video. Like I said, I want to make these less than 10 minutes, okay? Take care.
Well, I'll be seeing you then, and I hope you do a much better job than you did here, because this was awful.